Now it's on. What? I'm sorry. Good evening. I will now call the October 8th, 2024 meeting of the Ben Lapine School Board of Directors to order. Okay. I'd like to introduce our participants this evening. To my immediate left, Directors Amy Tatum, Keena Chadwick, Cameron Fisher, and Shirley Olson. And to my immediate right is Carrie joining us virtually?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, thank you, Director McPherson Douglas. I would like to also introduce to my right, Superintendent Dr. Stephen Cook, Deputy Superintendent Lisa Burke, Board Chair Janet Bojanowski, and I am Marcus LeGrand, Chair of the Board. Vice Chair McPherson Douglas is now joining us virtually. I'm sorry, it was in the script, I just overlooked it quickly. At this time, I will now turn it over to Kenzie Martin, Executive Director of Policy, Advocacy, and Equity, to introduce our participants from the Student Voice Council, who will hear from them later in the meeting.
All right, good evening. I am super excited to introduce to all of you our co-facilitators and our student representatives tonight. So we have Steve Weatherald, who works at Ben High, who's one of our new co-facilitators, Amy Zepniewski, who works at Pacific Crest and is also one of our district equity coaches. And then at the table, we have Ben Schnur, a student at Realms High School. We have Chloe Grisson, a student at Caldera High School, and then Elliot DeMartin, another student from Realms, who are going to be joining you this evening. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Kenzie. And let's give a round of applause for these outstanding students for being here. And our sponsors as well. Thank you all for taking your time out from your families and from your studies to be able to be here. In order to ensure safety and the ability of the board to focus on business, we ask that all audience members adhere to the board member attendee expectations. This includes being seated and holding signs under chin level. If there are no available seats, individuals will wait in the lobby. Unfortunately, our lobby is really huge. And thank you. And now will you please stand and remove your hats and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. Thank you all. And now I'm going to move to agenda item number 3, review of the agenda. Dr. Kirk, are there any changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Chair LeGrand. At this time, I would request that we move agenda item 9A, the finance report. Could we please move it to item number 5 to precede the student advisory report and immediately following the district recognitions?
All right, thank you for that request, Superintendent. And fellow board members, are there any changes to the agenda? Seeing that no requests of changes, I need to entertain a motion to be able to make the change.
I'll make a motion for Dr. Cook's change to the agenda.
Okay,
Second.
cool. Director Amy Tatum has moved and seconded by Cameron Fisher, Director Fisher. And following immediately this agenda item, do I have a second? We already have that. Thank you. We have the motion, and this is any discussion on this topic whatsoever in this change? All right. Hearing the no request for discussion at this time, I call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed? I believe the nays have it unanimous. And now we'll turn it over to Dr. Cook to present the Champion for Students Award.
Thank you, Chair LeGrand. At this time, could I have Dawn Grady please join me on the stage? I am so very honored to give this award to an educator who makes a meaningful impact on her community every day at LaPine Middle School. She advises a program focused on supporting incoming sixth graders. I'm so proud to name English language arts teacher Dawn Grady as our champion for students for the month of October. If you're not familiar with the WEB program, it stands for Where Everybody Belongs, and it features 8th grade students volunteering to welcome new 6th grade students. The older students help the 6th grade students adjust to middle school life and feel welcome and included throughout the school year. Through WEB, Dawn Grady guides LaPine Middle School in building positive school culture. Principal Brian Behringer shared this about Dawn. Dawn's attention to detail and tireless work inspires everyone in our building. Being our WEB advisor, Dawn is a crucial part of welcoming our incoming sixth graders to LaPine Middle School. Dawn makes sure to cover all the essential pieces a sixth grader would need to be successful at LaPine Middle School. After WEB Day, students feel welcomed, safe, and valued. She ensures students are prepared and put in a positive position to thrive. Dawn is a fantastic team member. The staff loves her positive attitude, her solution-seeking approach to anything that comes her way. Dawn's impact goes beyond the WEB program. Assistant Principal Darla Brandon said, you got both of them to write about you. I like that. Dawn is a dedicated educator that has a heart for our community of staff and students. She is invested in building a safe and rigorous learning environment through clear expectations, skillful teaching practices, and strong relationships. Her positive and encouraging energy helps drive school initiatives and inspires staff to continue moving forward. So, Dawn Marie Grady, in recognition of your outstanding contribution to the success of LaPine Middle School incoming sixth graders through the Where Everybody Belongs program, your dedication to both students and staff cultivate a supportive and thriving community. Your commitment to service has made a profound and lasting impact on the students and those around you. Ben LaPine Schools is proud to count you among our champion for students. Let's give her a round of applause, everybody. All right, you want to hear from Dawn, don't you? Tammy said yes.
So I'm normally a behind-the-scenes kind of a person. That's why WEB is something that I think fits me really well in a way I can serve my school really well. Most of the work I do with the 8th graders is behind the scenes in the summer, and it only works because they work so hard at it, because we have so many great kids at our school. The other reason WEB works at our school is because our administrators focus on culture and on systems that help us improve every single year. So I'm going to stay behind the scenes, but I really appreciate that I'm doing a good job there. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Dawn. Let's get one. Dawn, one photo. We want to get one photo. You're trying to get away. Okay.
Yeah, I'm also hilarious. I didn't tell you that.
Right.
Thank you. Now can I go?
Now you can go. One last round of applause for Dawn. Thank you. And that's it for our district recognitions tonight.
Thank you, Dr. Cook, and congratulations, Dawn. I will now hear from our Chief Finance Officer, Dan Emerson, for our first quarter finance report and our enrollment update.
Okay. For the record, Dan Emerson, Chief Financial Officer. Pleasure to be here tonight. As Chair LeGrand said, we're going to be going over our quarterly financial reports along with our enrollment reports for Ben LaPine Schools. So first up, I'd have you flip to page number 2 in your packet here. And you can see that beginning fund balance, we had budgeted beginning fund balance to be $23 million. As of right now, at year-end close, it's actually $27.6 million, so about 4.3 more than anticipated. And beginning fund balance is the funds that we carry over, effectively revenues subtracted expenditures from the year prior. So this is good that we have this $4.6 million positive variance. It really helps our budget. The reason we have this variance is effectively because we had 1.2 million more in other revenue, which was mostly interest earnings on our treasury bonds. We had $1 million more in school state funding due to higher than anticipated enrollment and a higher ADMW than anticipated. And we also had $1 million less in other operating costs and slightly less in personnel than we anticipated in June. And so it is intended that this positive variance, or it was intended that it will help cover some of the funding needs of the district since the end of the ESSER funds and help alleviate future forecasted financial instability. Is there any questions on beginning fund balance or how we kind of ended up in that position here? Okay. Moving forward, we have looked at our other revenues and we've projected some additional state school fund revenue of about $1 million based on the enrollment trends that we're about to go over right here. We're seeing a little bit higher than enrollment projections from budgeting, and because of that, we'd have a higher ADMW that would account for potentially up to $1 million more in the state school fund. We also budgeted our tax revenue fairly conservatively, and we think that with the assessed value right now, we will probably receive at least $200,000 more, if not more, in revenue there. So total here, we have $5.9 million more in revenue on the actual side than we budgeted in the approved and adopted budget in June. For expenditures, you'll notice that I've kept those the same as budget right now, and I think that's a fairly common practice here and elsewhere. The reason for that is there's a lot of variability in the first quarter with personnel expenditures as well as with utilities and other costs, and so we really need to wait a few months to be able to iron out exactly where we're going to land, and so those December projections will be a lot more granular and in detail, and you'll get a better idea of where we will be. And so going forward, I did want to point out that just in terms of as we read this financial statement here, you can look and see that from a budgeted perspective, we're going from $27.6 million in beginning fund balance, and at the end of the year, though, our ending fund balance is $22.36 million projected right now. And again, we haven't entered any of the expenditures, but that means that over the year, just doing general business, we're losing about $5.2 million should we come in as budgeted right now. And that, I think, is one of the things that Brad had kind of said before, is we want to make sure that we're not eating into our beginning working capital every year. The more that occurs, the quicker it can kind of drop down. However, that being said, you can see that despite our projection of kind of eating into beginning fund balance for last year, we actually did end up $4.6 million over. So there's a lot of variances that still could happen with personnel, supplies, capital expenditures, and things of those need. But I did want to call that out for the board right now. Are there any questions on this financial statement or where we are in terms of actuals to budget in this first quarter?
Dan, I do have a question.
Yes, thank you.
Do these figures include the change in PERS?
In the PERS, no, it doesn't. That is a great question, Director Olson. So PERS will hit, this is the last year of the biennial for the PERS. PERS will hit in this next budgeted year. Brad Henry had forecasted a 2.5% increase in our pension liability, our PERS. It looks like we are going to come in around 4%. And so what that means from a district perspective is that personnel costs will be inflated over what we had forecasted there by about $1.8 million. And so that's a pretty heavy hit, but there are other things going on at the same time. We've had some positive, I think, messaging from Governor Kotek about potentially having a larger state school funding, and so some of these things might offset each other. But we are seeing, and you'll see that in the December projection, not for fiscal year 25, but we're seeing higher unemployment too, which is another personnel cost. And so some of those projections will be in the next quarterly report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Director Olson. Any other questions regarding finance? Okay.
Dan, if I may, I want to bring back our attention to, if you'll notice later in the consent agenda, those legislative priorities. Once again, we're talking about the increased costs of unfunded mandates that we want to present to our legislators, and the fact that our unemployment costs from 22-23 were about $250,000. Last year, they came in about $1.6 million. And so this is just another example of what I think is really quality intentional laws that are being passed without consideration for the financial implications. And so that's captured in that legislative priorities document as well.
Thank you, Dr. Cook. So moving on to page 3 of your packet, it's the enrollment report, which obviously directly ties into the school state funding or the state school funding formula. So I'm going to start off with the elementary school enrollment. As we kind of talked about in September, the largest thing is that elementaries are down right now 132 from our budgeted projections. Specifically, the largest area of variance is in kindergartens, where they are down 143 students. In other areas, they've really come in pretty well where we projected. It just continues to be kindergarten was not what we had anticipated at this point in time. And, that question came up last time, why is that? And we continue to look into that. There's a lot of variables, and we will get a more comprehensive answer for this board. But the main variables are, again, going to be birth rates, right? Birth rates have dropped. But the recapture rates for kindergarten, as Dr. Cook pointed out last time, have historically been larger. And the recapture rate is kind of the percentage increase or decrease from grade to grade. And we do see kindergarten first grade up in the 113%, 115%. So we do see that kind of trend. And then, of course, there's the net in-migration versus out-migration. And so we're looking at those things right now. There are a lot of variables, and they're difficult to suss out, but we'd like to give you a little bit more information there. Going on to middle school enrollments are up 69 over projected. It's pretty flat all the way across, so Cascade Middle School is up 25, Pacific Crest is up 24, but it's generally, the spread is pretty even. And in high school enrollment, that's where we're seeing our largest change. High school is actually still up 260. Looking at last year's projections, I anticipated to see some of those high school students drop off from September to October, and we really didn't see that many. So they appear to be still in our system. Caldera High School is the one highlighted in yellow here. They have 125 new students as of this fiscal year. Are there any questions about kind of our brick and mortar enrollment? Just so folks know, our brick and mortar enrollment is up 197 students, which is really what's pushing that increase that you saw in the financial statements of $1 million in the state school fund. Okay. Program enrollment is at 438 currently as of October 1st. Last October 1st, it was at 611. There's a couple different factors there. One is COIC concurrently enrolled folks are no longer showing in this report. They used to show as a home school of COIC. Now they're showing actually wrapped in within the high schools, middle schools, and kindergartens. And also Oregon Youth Challenge is no longer in the other category, so we're not seeing that. Year-over-year enrollment enrolled in schools, we're just down 3 from last year, which is really a new trend to be basically flat from where we were year over year. This is a really positive development. Students enrolled in programs are down 173, but as we spoke to, that's due to COIC and Oregon Youth Challenge. Are there any questions on enrollment? And we will continue to monitor that and let you know if there's any large changes. Okay.
I have a question, sorry.
Yes, Director Fisher.
Is it pretty easy to have last year's and this year's side by side? Am I missing that? Did we have that at one point?
So we have the aggregate, the summary at the very bottom, the year-over-year enrollment, October 1st, 24 of October 1st, 23. But are you saying by school or by grade level? Or?
Yeah, or maybe just next time. That would be helpful.
By grade level in school?
Yeah,
Sure.
Yeah, that would be
We
great.
can do that.
Thank you.
Okay, finally, we come to our investment report. We've had a number of investments mature over the last few months. So our total maturity and our total market value of our portfolio is down substantially. It's at $77 million right now. Average yield to maturity is 3.6%. All of our bonds are held in United States Treasuries or Treasury discount notes or Treasury notes, which are effectively risk-free, which means they don't have a very high interest rate, so we're not getting large interest rate, but they are backed by the federal government, so we are going to get paid for them. And so that's kind of the good news there. As tax revenue comes in this business cycle, which will be from now and through December, we will have excess funds over and above what the LGIP pool allows us to have, so we'll be making some new operating and some bond investments with treasuries in compliance with our board policy. Lastly, I want to just say that we are in the middle of our external financial audit, and we do believe that the audit will be clean, but wanted to let you know that they have started their field work as of October 7th, 2024. I don't expect any audit results or any material findings at this point in time, and Sensiba is our auditing partner. So if there's no other questions from the board, I just want to thank you for your time.
I'm sorry, it's
Yes.
kind of hard to hear here.
Sure. Director Chadwick.
Did you say when the audit will be completed?
The audit, the timeframe varies, but the audit will probably be completed, I would say, no later than end of or middle December, and potentially as early as beginning of December.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you.
And now I will turn it over to the Student Voice Council for their report.
Thank you. Oh my gosh. Hi, I am so delighted that we can be here in front of you all. I'm sad that not all of our members can be up here with us, but we'd love to report about our first couple meetings that we've had. And it's just an incredible honor to be here, and that the board has given students the opportunity to speak. Everyone has a voice, so that I'm glad that we can speak on our side of everything. And I am so delighted that we have been able to work with our new facilitators, Amy and Steve. Can we give them one more round of applause? We last minute lost our last facilitator, so them coming in and stepping up to the plate and was like, I'm gonna help these students is so amazing, and the work they're putting in is so great. And I'm just so excited that we can create culture, and that every student will have a voice, and that we're gonna mainly try to look at the voices of our students at Ben Lapine, and not just our voices, but look deeper within at the surveys and get deeper voices represented. And then I'll hand it off to talk about more what we talked about in our first meeting.
Hello, I'm Ben. And so our first meetings have been very, very productive. We said our first meetings were just establishing, I think that mic is still on. So it won't echo? It won't, hooray! So yeah, our first meetings were really productive. We were establishing norms, mostly, to be able to function very productively as a group, and just, how boarding meetings will go, and all the things. And so yeah, they've been productive. And so I guess, I think I said the word.
Along with, you can hear me, right? Okay. Along with talking about our norms and talking about what we're actually looking to achieve, we had a few priority topics that we wanted to discuss and wanted to share with you. Something that we're focusing on a lot is community activism, like promoting our volunteering and having more student groups come together and advocating for funding for our schools as well. we wanted to focus on mental health awareness, access, and events, things like sources of strength, and maybe adding it into certain curriculums as well. Bias incident lessons, lesson designs, and data analysis for our mental health awareness and just for our bias incidents as well. And I think that's it, but yeah.
I'd like to add one more thing that I forgot to say. This year, as Student Voice Council, we're not looking to have one person represent all of us, but all of our voices are equal. We're all here to contribute something. Like, none of our voices are less equal than another because we are here to represent different identities, different skin colors, different types of backgrounds and stuff like that. So this year we'll have different jobs assigned, like note taker. We'll have different speakers and campaign designers and stuff like that. So everyone's skills are contributed equally. I would like to thank you guys for your time and hearing our voices. Thank you.
All right, I want to thank you again for being here. Appreciate it very much. As a reminder, also, when we come to you, like I said, you will report on various things, but also we may come to you during the meeting and ask questions as well. And also, if you have a question about something that we are talking about, feel free to chime in as well, because that's why you're here also, be able to report back to your schools and to the various places you're going to go. And I know it can be a little nerve-wracking being here, but I think once over time, you'll get comfortable being here with us. So we, again, thank you for being here so much. And thanks for the coordinators for helping, getting them prepared to be here as well. All right. Directors, do you have any questions for the Student Voice Council? All right. Yes, go ahead, excuse me, Director Fisher.
Thank you. I was curious, what's your number of students who are part of Student Voice Council right now?
Emma,
If
Amy,
you know.
yes, she just said it's about 22 people. Currently, in the last 2 meetings, we've had roughly about 15 with commitments and stuff like that, but we're hoping to keep it very even with how we distribute everything between each person.
Great. And then last year, I think the goal was to try to include a couple other additional schools. Have you been able to capture representation from all the high schools?
Yeah, we actually had 2 other people from different schools who were going to be representatives, but they had, things coming up. I think we have at least one person from almost every school in the Ben Lapine School District. So
That's great.
yay.
Okay.
I promise it's not just us.
Oh, no. Yeah, good. I'm glad to hear it. Thank you.
I have a comment. It's very tough to find ways, avenues to get some more voices from each school. Have you guys talked about that yet? About how to engage at your school topics and ideas and discussion?
Do you mean like events that we would do at our specific schools?
It could be events, it could just be open meetings or just talking to a lot of kids like at lunch or something. But that is a challenge, and I appreciate the commitment. But at some point, you'll probably have to share a bunch of ideas about how best to do that.
I can speak for myself and for Realms. Before I joined the Student Voice Council, we have been working towards more of bias incidents and trying to alleviate them. And for mental health awareness specifically, like we have had different community meetings and assemblies based specifically off of that. That's something I personally would like to contribute to different schools and make sure that we all can be on the same page revolving that.
Excellent. Thank you.
I would like to add something I thought of is during our meeting, we discussed looking at the youth truth surveys. So each school has different, how do you feel like you belong at this school? And so we're going to look at the different analytics for each school. Like, do you feel like you're being bullied? Do you feel like you get enough college and career readiness? Do you feel like the bias, like a lot of different questions and a lot of student voices. And so looking at the different
analytics for each school, and having different peoples from each school helps as well. So every person has something else they're passionate about. And so definitely looking at that and then prioritizing, oh, this school needs a little more help here, this school needs a little more help here. So that was going to be our first step for our next meeting as a group.
Excellent, and we value that data very much from the Youth Truth Survey.
Again, thank you very much. And now we're going to be going into public comment. Now, when public comment is a portion of the meeting, the board and directors' leadership value communications from students, families, staff, and community members as helps to guide the work of Ben Lupine Schools. Public comment is just one of the many avenues available to ensure this connection. Members of the public may now submit thoughts, questions, and concerns to the board via email as well as in writing. Individual board members also make themselves available for phone, video, and in-person conversations. This said, I will remind the public, while this is a meeting of the Board of Directors that takes place in public, it is not a meeting with the public. It is a meeting of the Board of Directors to conduct district business. As such, the board will not respond to public comments made during tonight's meeting. Instead, issues may be recorded and referred to a proper staff person to follow up with you. We will now open to public comment and hear from stakeholders on topics in order that will appear on the agenda. Our policy is typically allowed up to 2 minutes per speaker until the time cap has been reached for the agenda item. We typically allow up to 10 minutes of public comment per agendized item and 10 minutes of comments for non-agendized items. A timer is provided on the large screen that was above, and to our virtual attendees to ensure every speaker receives updates during the presentation on the remaining time. If the speakers go over time or if the speaker's message is not in interference with our policies, for example, being personally directed, abusive, discriminatory, repetitive, or off topic, I may ask the speaker to cease and terminate their speaker's privilege to address the board. At this time, I will now hear from, and I'm pulling it up as we speak. And the internet wants to be slow. Is it Tia Johnson Brown? Johnston Brown. Okay, I don't see if we have the person here. Okay. All right. Yeah, those two people have been marked out. Okay, it's top one. I'm sorry, Becky Erickson. Okay. All right. All right. At this time, now we'll move to the consent agenda. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay. It has been a motion by Director Chadwick and second by Director Olson. There any requests to remove anything from the consent agenda? Okay. Since there were no requests for any changes, I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. Do we hear Carrie? Okay. All opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you. Now I will turn it over to Dr. Cook for the consent for information.
Thank you, Chair LeGrand. In the consent for information, you will see follow-up. You will see several items. The first one includes follow-up to public comment that we received at the last board meeting. That's on September 10th from the Carpenters Union. You will also see our 23-24 report on Executive Limitation 4.1, legally required policies. In regards to these policies, the district is adopting policies regarding the use of tobacco products for both students and staff as a result of required OSBA updates. Another required update was changes to the compulsory attendance policy. This policy is included for adoption. However, the regulation is still under review to ensure that it aligns with current practices. It will return to the board packet at a later date. The KI and KJ policies and regulations that we have common referred to as the advertising policies in the past. We've also been working on those as a reminder for months. This goes all the way back into last year. These policies were moved through our our consulting system, which meant it moved through several student and community groups for discussion, as well as district administrators in rewriting of these policies. These policies went out for the public after the September 10th board meeting, after our September 10th, the last board meeting, and no community feedback was received on those policies. The final item in the consent for information, for your information, is the 24-25 strategic initiatives for our organizational goals for this year, and I am glad to answer any questions that you might have regarding any of those items for consent for information.
Director, do you have any questions about any of the things from the consent agenda? Excuse me, consent for information, my fault. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Cook. All right. And now I will turn it over to Dr. Burke to present the district's Division II assurances report.
All right, hello everyone. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit this evening about Division 22. As a reminder, you may know this already. For some of you, this may be new. Division 22 outlines. I'm getting signals. Please hold. Okay. Division 22 outlines 4 major areas that have 58 different rules related to Ben Lapine describing sort of our level of compliance related to baseline types of pieces for any school to be functioning. So as you can see in the first slide that I had shared, all OARs set out in Chapter 581 of Division 22. That's what we're talking about today. It is required by the state in order to be a standard school district, so you need to be able to report on your compliance. And this is a document that ensures the baseline of service. So lots of school districts, including Ben Lapine, has areas in which we kind of exceed what is the baseline. But this document really outlines what are the baseline adequacies that are necessary for our school district. So these standards are important because as a whole, they signal our commitment to high quality education services and equitable opportunities. As I stated, they articulate what the floor is, not the ceiling. So we can always do more than what we are doing, but we cannot be doing less. And it provides opportunities for us to reflect on areas of need. So as a longstanding school district, each year there are things that we may be in compliance one year and then based on different changes that come up or different state regulations that become new. We need to reflect on how our school is sort of shoring up on those different practices. So for us this year, we do have one area out of the 58 that we are out of compliance. So when this happens, we need to identify what it is and also identify our plan to sort of become in compliance, as well as the length of time that would take. So right now, our corrective action that we have in place, the area in which we were out of compliance is related to local performance assessments. This is very specific to grades 3 through 8 in a variety of different subject areas. And so our corrective action is really in tandem with our new adoptions. So what we know is every year, every 7 years, we adopt depending on the different subject area. But as we adopt new curriculum, so this last year we adopted new language arts, and next year we'll be looking at mathematics. And as we adopt new curriculum across our district, we will also employ common district assessments that can be sort of assured. So right now we have several different assessments that are happening across our school district in grades 3 through 8, but they are not necessarily consistent and matched up to our current curriculum adoption. So that's that is where we're moving toward. This also goes hand in hand in the middle school with our work related to priority standards and equitable grading. So as we move toward priority standards, we have identified these are the specific standards that we feel like are the big rocks that we want to move. And we also have identified and developed district standard assessments that are related to those. So for some of these grade levels, they are already in place and we are well on our way. For other areas, again, along with adoptions, we will be well on our way. And we anticipate by the end of 25-26 school year that this will be well developed and consistent throughout our school district. Are there any questions related to Division 22?
Do these compliance reports, are they produced annually or biannually?
Annually. And they do change annually. So there are things that they have already signaled that for our report next year, there are a handful of things that need to be in place that were not required this year. And that happens every year.
Directors, any other questions? My question is pertaining to, like I said, the equitable grading piece. I want to know how's that coming and how are we doing with implementation and people buying into what we're trying to do in that regard?
Yeah, so in terms of how is it going, I would say we're well on our way. We started this year with all secondary participating in some trainings related to not just the kind of theoretical framework related to what equitable grading is, but also like tactically and realistically how they can get it done within Synergy Gradebook or what this looks like in some of their tech tools. And that has been, for some, that has been a little bit of a barrier to sort of say, like, okay, I'm on board with this idea of this. I can kind of see this in assessment, but then I'm not sure how we record this. So some of those technical components were a little bit elusive. So we're trying to make those two things match up. So we've gotten great response from our secondary folks as they've launched into this year. And each year we have groups of teachers that are creating those most important standards that we are focusing on. So all of the products that are being created are based on groups of teachers creating those products. So as that becomes more robust, we will be ready to go. And like I said, they've already produced several different district-wide assessments that cause us to line up in ways that we haven't experienced in Ben Lupine in the past.
Directors, any other questions? Anything on the common assessments? Any targets or anything on that? Just want to make sure. All right, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Burke, appreciate it very much. We're going to make a small adjustment to the agenda. Principal Olszewski is actually in the middle of a volleyball thing right now. All the things and duties you have to do as a principal. So we're going to go ahead and shift to the vacant board seat. And I'm going to... So I'm just going to read this off so you know exactly what we're doing so everybody's abreast of what's going on. At this time, we'll move to the vacancy for the Zone 6 board member seat. We have 7 applications for the board to consider, all of which are in the board package you already received. All board members have an opportunity to review the applications on the individual time. The goal for the evening is to identify the top 3 candidates to move on to the final interview phase that will take place during a special meeting on November 12th at 6 p.m. At this time, Board Clerk Janet Bojanowski will pass out a scoring sheet. Vice Chair Carrie McPherson Douglas submitted her sheets to Janet earlier today to her virtual attendants. Each board member will individually select the top 3 candidates and pass the scoring sheet back to Janet. And that was close. We almost lost everything, including Steve. Janet. She and Deputy Superintendent Lisa Burke will count the scores and notify us we have a clear top 2 or 3 candidates. If it isn't a clear top 2 or 3 candidates, to move on to the interview phase, we will re-vote for the highest scoring candidate until we have a top or 2, 3 candidates that are in questions on the process. Are there any questions on the process? Sorry. All right. Do you just want to just fold it and pass it back down to you? Okay. You okay?
Chairman LeGrand, would it be possible to ask the students a question about the, following up on your question about the new grading system?
Most definitely.
No. I'm just curious. I don't expect, a thorough discussion of the item, but just, how does the new grading system seem to you and to the kids that you work with and see every day?
So speaking only about Realms, because that's my experience, we recently switched to the 0 through 4 grading system instead. Honestly, I love it. Me personally, I feel it's much easier to understand rather than the 0 through 6, because it's just like F, D, C, B, A instead. From what I've heard from other students when we were first talking about it at my school, it's a lot more helpful and a lot easier to understand why your grade is what it is and how your grades work like in Synergy. So I like it personally.
I think that's something definitely to consider in our next meeting, that I want to bring that up to get everyone's opinion, because I think that's something that I haven't thought about when we were talking. I was like, that is actually something that's very relevant to this day. I do like how it is developing proficient and advanced. Those are skills that we need in our everyday jobs when we are we proficient in this activity? Are we advanced in this activity? So just not going to say much more than that, not knowing exactly how other students feel, but I do love the way it is labeled, because it's a way for people to understand and oh, my child is proficient, my child is advanced in this area. Especially with ceramics, it makes sense to me that, oh, I am proficient in making a bowl.
Yeah. I think one thing I've noticed is that it's at least how the teachers at Realms have been implementing the system. It's been really easy to for example, recently this is I did not study well. I did not understand the math test at all, but I barely screwed I tried on one problem that looked vaguely familiar, and I was able to get a 1 rather than a 0, even though the entire rest of the page was fine. So I don't really know what I'm saying, but I don't know, little tidbit.
Thanks, very much. And yeah, we'd love to hear, I would love to hear some more about it from the council. Thank you.
May I just add one thing also? I really love what you just said, that there's a little hope when you get a 1, perhaps. But I thank you, Shirley, for asking that question. And I'm hoping that the beauty of now having folks, or at least one from every high school, and several from many, that you all can be tasked with getting the pulse from your student body in different ways, right? No pressure, but just I think that's my hope, is that you can be the voice for not everybody, but for many who can share their feelings about things that have been concerns for a lot of students, and bias-cidence and the standards-based grading and some of those top concerns. I look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
We definitely don't just represent all of the schools, and so we definitely want to look at polls, starting new polls at schools, and getting definitely feedback from the students, because we aren't the only students that are affected by the school system. So definitely even interviewing different staff, how they like implementing it, from different schools, principals, teachers, even just like regular staff members, and how it affects them in a sense.
All right, thank you very much. And now, Janet and Lisa, will you now name the top 2 or 3 candidates for us, please?
There are a clear top 3: Brandy Berlin, Jen Lynch, and Ross Tomlin.
Can you say those one more time for me, please?
Brandy Berlin, Jen Lynch, and Ross Tomlin.
All right, thank you very, very much. At this time, I will entertain a motion to advance candidates to the interview process for the Zone 6 vacancy seat.
I will make a motion to advance Brandy Berlin, Jen Lynch, and Ross Tomlin to the final interview.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. It has been motioned by Director Tatum and second by Director Chadwick. Has made the motion. Any discussion on this topic?
I just want to say I was really impressed with the number of folks, or the applicants, and their cover letters, and the vast experience in various realms, but especially education and community involvement. And I think that's really valuable, that we all got to read their information, and it wasn't easy. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments. I appreciate it. Hearing no request for any discussion at this time, I call for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Director McPherson Douglas. All opposed? Okay. Now call for, thank you, it is unanimously passed. All applicants will be notified of the board action taken this evening, all right? And I will be contacting them either via phone or email to let them know. And now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Cook for the superintendent's report. Oh, I'm sorry, he's back. All right, okay. All right, thank you. Thanks for sneaking in. At this time, we'll turn it over to Scott Olszewski. I got the first name incorrect, but the last name I did correctly. Lapine High School Principal and South County Director for a South County update. Welcome.
I appreciate the accommodation too, so I can be over there for senior night for volleyball. Great, so I am Scott Olszewski. I am the Lapine High Principal in my 4th year, and I also serve as South County Director, and this is my annual South County Spotlight Update. Do I hit the button? Great. So our South County school culture is really thriving, and I'm going to focus on a few different areas here tonight. I can roughly put them all under culture, systems, and professional learning. When I discussed this with our other schools, there were definite themes, and I would say they all fit under those general buckets or umbrellas. So first, I just want to make sure we're all clear on what is South County. When we use that term South County, I tend to think of it just anything south of Lava Butte, but it's a couple different areas So the community is our Three Rivers K through 8 school, which serves Three Rivers in the northern end of the South County boundary, Roslyn Elementary, Lapine Elementary, Lapine Middle, and Lapine High School. Three of those schools are part of a direct feeder into Lapine High School, and then Three Rivers is part of a choice area boundary that also feeds into Caldera or Lapine High. So Three Rivers, K through 8, the Otters, they are thriving for sure. There's culture and engagement. They have a wide array of after-school programs. I just highlighted a few there, garden club and robotics, but they really have worked over almost the past decade to make sure that in that community there are things for kids to do after school. So that's a big part of what they do, and I would consider that culture. They have some great field trips. They do a walking trip out to Shark. They go out to the fish hatchery that's out on Fall River, and then fifth grade Camp Tamarack for all fifth graders. And then they also have their annual Otter Walk event, which just happened, I believe it was just last Friday, which is a big fundraiser, and the community is super supportive. I can speak to a lot of these because my own son goes there, and he just said when we were out on South Century doing the Otter Walk, that was the best part because everybody was honking and waving and just being really supportive. He just loved it. Professional learning and systems, so that was our other area here. They are part of our district mission to do the new K through 5 language arts curriculum and expeditionary learning. And then in 6 through 8, they're really honing that MTSS tiered system. So we have a systematic approach in our schools for all kids. The Rockets at Roslyn. So they have been for the last few years now doing mindful music to start each day, knowing that if our mind is in the right place and our brain's in the right place, then we can learn. And they have some really great fifth grade leaders at the school. Some really great kids in that fifth grade, which is so important at the elementaries. Professional learning, they've been doing a staff book study on student-to-student discourse, knowing that when we have visible or observable learning, and when we have to process our learning verbally with others, that we learn at a quicker rate, and also those who are there to guide us in our learning are getting a lot of feedback to adjust instruction. Systems and goals, they have a very strong and consistent focus on the Tier 1, which is those things that we do for all kids, whether it's academic or behavioral or any other system we put in place. So a strong focus on that Tier 1. And then they also celebrate that with rocket charts. They're the Rockets. The Lapine Elementary Panthers, and you're going to start to notice some themes here in some of these things that our schools in South County are doing. So culture and engagement, they've done a really neat thing with these Imagine posters that were based on imagine our school community if everyone was kind to one another. Imagine a school community if every child felt safe at all times at school. And so they're really doing some great vision work about what makes a wonderful school for kids. They also have a great active community group, FOLPI, the Friends of Lapine Elementary, and they've been hosting a variety of community events. Movie night, they did Garfield a month or so ago, and community turned out. And then they also helped to host the Community Harvest Fair just last week, which was great. I think we had close to 500 people there. Professional learning, they did some school dignity promise work. So their whole staff got together and did a retreat to talk about what is dignity and the differences between respect and dignity and how dignity is inherent worth. And what does that mean and how's that going to inform our practice as educators who are with kids all day and also working on that new ELA curriculum. For some other systems and goals, they hired a new student services coordinator with a real focus on attendance and family engagement, something that we did in Lapine last year as well because we have a regional family engagement coordinator. Now they've kind of increased our capacity to do that by having their own as well, and a real recognition of regular attendance, so celebrating what we hope to see. All right, Lapine Middle, the Hawks. They have been doing a lot of staff team building to build culture. They have a really strong staff, and many of them have been there for a lot of years, and they are continuing to do team building to even capitalize on that further. But they have this idea of making sure that there's a trusted adult for every student every day. And as a former middle school teacher and dean and principal, I can tell you that's extremely important, and that's a wise move. They also have a great summer program. If you're not familiar with it, you ought to come by in the summer and just see and feel the energy they have on that summer program and see the different field experiences they're having. It's really great. Professional learning, they are focused on engagement and then feedback loops, and also really taking a good look at what does it mean to have a rigorous curriculum. Systems and goals, there's that tier 1 again, right? You're going to see that all the way through every one of our schools. What's our system for all kids? They are also doing some of that positive recognition. For them, that looks like a Hawks store with Hawks Bucks. And then they also have a Nest advisory so that every student can feel a sense of belonging and have that dignity validated. And I love that quote, where LPMS culture takes flight. All right, the ones that are the nearest and dearest to me here are the Lapine High Hawks. We did a whole different format for culture with our open house this year. So we invited the entire community in and we did a big barbecue, but we had 23 different stations around the school where teachers and students were highlighting the things that kids really do here at this school every day. And people came in and they got a passport, and if you went to at least 6 of those stations, then that was your ticket out to the barbecue. We also made sure that we had a pinch point right at the beginning where everybody who came through, we said, do you know when the newsletter comes out? Do you know where our Facebook is? Can you get onto Canvas on your student's account? Do you know how to get onto Parent View? So that was our Get Connected station. We've also been riding bikes together at times, and on certain Fridays we get together, and I don't do this, but I'm going to say we anyway. We make great food, and we call it edible masterpieces, and we put it in the staff lounge. For our professional learning, I love simple slogans, and the ones we've gone with this year around culture are, whether it's in the classroom or with staff, are we building bonds, and are we focusing on fun? Because if we have fun together and we build bonds together, then when we go to do student-to-student discourse, or if it's 2 adults working on a difficult issue, we have a bond, we have some shared experience. And then we're really trying to accelerate our mission toward the standards-based grading. And I did not have a good catchphrase for it, but I kept saying, we have to make sure we're teaching to the standards and we're also aligned with our colleagues. And someone wiser than me in the room said, let's get in sync. So now we're singing bye, 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 and doing the in sync dances, and we're getting in sync with the standards and with each other. I take no shame in that. Our systems, we are very happy to be on a trimester calendar this year. We went to 5 periods a day, same 5 classes every day for 12 weeks. Feedback from kids and staff has been great. We are on that tier 1 as well. We're very happy about the district adopting a really clear code of conduct so that we're all on a shared playing field as far as what we expect. We think that that also honors the dignity of everybody who encounters our schools. And then once a month at our SIW, our Wednesday professional development time, we are working on family connections. So let's get some emails out to those parents. If you're a teacher that's maybe not so sure how to word it, or you've got a difficult phone call to make, we're all getting together in one room and saying, let's help each other communicate, make some connections. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Scott, can you go back to the next to the last slide? I want to draw specific attention to something that Scott kind of blew through in his presentation. Lapine High School, on the work of Scott's advocacy, switched from the rotator schedule to the trimester schedule in 1 year. And I'm telling you that it is unheard of that you would switch a master schedule from one structure to another and not have staff, students, and parents up in arms. And I cannot tell you the amount of legwork that Scott did to make that happen in a very smooth and meaningful fashion. And I just knew and held my breath that we were going to have lots and lots of discourse. And I just want to shout out to Scott. The legwork that he did up front was some of the best I've ever seen. And we have had 0 complaints in that switch. Not necessarily because it's a better schedule, because a schedule isn't what determines what works, but because of the work of Scott and his entire team. And I just want to draw attention to that before anybody lets that slip by. This was a massive, massive lift that he performed.
I appreciate that, and I will say, I'm thinking back to the schools that are working on feedback loops and observable learning. Most of that happened because every time I checked in with Steve, he had more questions for me and said, come see me when you got those answered. So that was my feedback loop in real time, so I appreciate that.
All right, thank you, Scott. Directors, questions, comments?
First, well, I'm going to let you go first. The only thing I was going to say, I'm going to ask him a question, and I'll let you ask your question first. But I was going to first say to you, I looked at you, and you all kind of looked at me. So I was like, oh, they probably don't know who NSYNC is. You don't need to know who NSYNC is. It's probably best that you don't. But if you saw me look at you and give you an awkward look, that was why.
If you haven't seen Deadpool 3, then.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You know. All right. I'll defer to you.
Well, at Caldera and all Ben Lapine schools, actually, I haven't heard the trimester schedule. So when I heard that, like, that piqued my interest. I was like, oh. Oh, you guys have as well. Oh, well, then I am singled out. When I was hearing that, I was just curious on the why. Like, why Steve, Mr. Cook, mentioned briefly that you had difficulty with it and wanted to advocate and try to get it switched seamlessly. And so when I heard that, I was just wondering the why, how'd that happen, and kind of just the work you did within that, because just as a student, that piqued my interest.
That's a great question. Thank you. I'll give you the number one why because it was the main driver. There were some other, I guess you could call them sub-whys, but really it was just the predictability of it and just knowing each day you come in, you know exactly what you have to do. If you miss a day, it's not going to be several days, again, maybe before you see that class or for whether it's for athletics or illness or anything else. We just really wanted that predictable structure here.
As a student, that really appeals to me. I put it as my notes to talk about next meeting because that was just something that I was like, that seems like it works a lot better. The open rotator, is a lot different in a sense when it comes to high school, but that is just definitely something that I was like, wow, this is something I definitely would love to research and learn more about.
Great to hear.
I just wanted to kind of question. I love that at Lapine Elementary, we have a student services coordinator who's focusing on attendance and family engagement. And I would really love maybe next year to hear the impact of that role and, you know, if it's helping to bring more students back into our buildings on a consistent basis.
Great. That should be part of my presentation 12 months from now then.
Director Olson?
Just thanks, as always, and to our all of our administrators that work their buns off down there in Lapine. And the staff is wonderful and warm and receiving, and the kids are really feeling it.
Hear, hear.
Put it that way.
Hear, hear to that.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I'm curious to hear more about the mindful music at Roslyn, and if you all are noticing any positive behavioral changes, or I'll stop there.
I can only say anecdotally because I'm not at Roslyn, and if Deborah were here, she may be even, but I'm not trying to call her out and have her come up. But I know that they've been feeling really great about it. It seems like it's very regulating.
Yeah, and come on. Oh, I'm sorry. You don't want to come. You don't have to. She doesn't want to come.
We're not scary.
So the question was, are we seeing an impact? Absolutely. We've done a lot of work on culture and shifting our culture in the last couple of years, with one of our focuses on those routines and procedures and really getting those tier ones solid. But another piece was this mindful music. And we had a saying last year, from chaos to calm. Kids come in and they bring their mornings with them. They bring the chaos from running late, did you get your teeth brushed, get your shoes, grab your coat, let's go, why aren't you in the car already? They bring all of that in. And then we also have breakfast all together, which can also be kind of chaotic. And then they sit down in their lines and we play mindful music. It's about 2 to 3 minutes of classical music with some sort of mindfulness prompt, focus on your breathing, what are you imagining when you hear this music? And it immediately just gets quiet, it gets calm, kids are focused and ready. They stand up in orderly, quiet lines to move into the classroom. They're able to go into the classroom and just be ready to learn. We saw the impact last year, but then even this year, it's 100 times better this year than it was last year. that consistency of year over year. So yeah, we love it. Oh yes, it's sponsored by the Sun River Music Festival. They provide the subscription for us, and they're always looking for other schools also. Like they really want to get this into all of our schools. So
Yeah, I would like to see that in all of our schools too. I mean, is there an opportunity for you to connect with other schools, and I mean, what does that look like?
sure. There's also been a couple of articles and news pieces on the mindful music. So if you wanted to see from last year, there was a couple of articles and news pieces on it. And if you want to come and see, and you're invited anytime at 7:45 every morning.
I would like to, you can answer this question or any of the building leaders here. How has it changed and shifted the culture of the teachers and administrators and stuff working and doing these things as well?
The teachers appreciate it. They love it also. There's a reason why we're doing it this year also. They appreciate the shift in student focus, but then they also get a lot out of it also because they're mornings, they're prepping, they're trying to get things ready, they're walking in, they're ushering kids to their lines, and then they also take part in that mindful music. And then we do stretching or some sort of yoga and some sort of getting our bodies ready also. So they appreciate that also. Really positive feedback. Yes.
We also do it at Lopine Elementary.
Kate, introduce yourself.
Oh, what, Stan?
No, introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm Christina Ebner. I teach, or I have a 3-4 blend at Lopine Elementary, and we are using the mindful music as well, both of our schools. Theirs is more, the whole school does it at the same time. They're able to do that with their population size-wise. Our school is supposed to be at a certain time in the morning, but as a teacher for me, it's, like she said, 2 to 3, sometimes 4 minutes where no one can talk to me. And I can calm my brain, and that's the part that's been like so helpful and enabled me to be ready, because we have crazy mornings too as teachers, and it's that reminder of like, I need to be centered and ready to be mindful for my kids because that's what they deserve from me. And then for them to learn that I find it important makes them feel that it's important as well. And it's just been insanely impactful. Like, I cannot speak highly enough to it. And we were all asking as teachers this year, like, the first week we didn't have our subscription yet. Are we doing this again? Where's our mindful music? And the kids were as well. And the kids love, like this week, or last week, the focus was a classical piece that had guitar in it. And the lady talked about different parts. And some of our students are learning ukulele right now. And so they made that connection to the difference and the similarities between a ukulele and a guitar. And it was just, it's been so impactful to bring music conversation into our schools as well, because we don't have a music teacher normally, and neither does Roslyn. And I know a lot of other elementary schools, and there's so much research about music with trauma and how impactful that can be. And so it's been a really, really fun way to add a few minutes of music.
And then, and if any of you can answer this as well, parents, have you heard anything from parents about different behaviors? Have you seen any shift in students and stuff in their behaviors at home, homework getting done a little bit easier? How's that? Have you heard anything?
I had one student last year, he's not with us now, he went to a different school, but talk about how when he was at home, he told his mom he needed music if he was gonna calm down. Like, I think he was making that connection between those two things. I don't know that it was classical or exactly what type it was, but he was severely impacted by trauma, and so to me that was a big win, that he was making that connection between music and the feeling of calm. But as far as parents, I haven't personally had any parents speak to it, but they definitely know what it is. I don't know if Roslyn might have more because of it all being together. Have you had parents?
Not specifically, just some parents mentioned that their kids are enjoying it, but I haven't heard any stories, and we haven't done any type of polling or anything to find out if there's been a difference. And then also, it's really hard to say that it's one thing because we're doing lots of things. And so are we seeing an impact on students? Yes, but can we tie it back to just this one thing? Probably not.
Oh, that's understandable. And also the final question for you all is, people displaced from the fire? Have we heard any updates on any people being okay, you know, like making sure that they're getting back into a routine or anything like that? Are we
Impacted by the fire?
Yeah, about the fires, yeah.
We had quite a few teachers that were evacuated. As far as I know, they're all returned, and no one lost. I know no one lost housing, but yeah, it was pretty interesting to try to teach when you're not living in your house for a week. So that was rough. But yes, thankfully, I think it's moved the other way, and as far as I know, everybody's back into their regular housing.
Cool. Thank you for that. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
I actually have one more question about the mindful music. I was wondering how, I'm so sorry, I was trying to wait. Do we have any like retaliation when it comes to students that like did not want to participate when it came to like being quiet for a couple minutes? Because I was curious, it did sound like something that I was like, oh, like when you mentioned expanding it to other schools. I was wondering how the retaliation or how it was to get students back on board when it came to being quiet. Because I know, especially at the elementary school age, it's a lot different than trying to bring it into like middle schools or high schoolers even.
So we have a variety of ways that you can engage during that time. So you can sit up, do the deep breathing, close your eyes, really focus on the prompt. Or you can sit quietly, like and there's a wide spectrum. We've got kids who are, you know, super cute
with their pose,
with their posing and doing all of their exercises and swaying along. And then we have other kids who are just kind of looking around. So your participation level can vary, but we are all quiet. If you're not, we have some kids who aren't able to be quiet, and obviously to the best of our abilities. There's not any discipline or anything like that, just some reminders like, you know, but hasn't been an issue.
Yeah, I can only speak third and fourth grade. I'm not sure at the other grade levels, but it was very tricky at the beginning, definitely, as is any new routine. But I think it became easier as other students really liked it. It kind of created this tide of, oh, this isn't so bad, and everyone else in the room is listening and wanting to be a part of it, so maybe I do want to be a part of it. And just having like very specific expectations that were held for them. And I would say within the first probably 2 weeks, it was pretty, my class was pretty good about acknowledging it. And we talk a lot about, it's not just about you in the room, it's about other people, and other people may not have had a calm morning, and if you're giving them dignity, then you're thinking about them and where they are in their shoes right now, and maybe they need that moment. So if you're acting out, then that's taking away their calm. And that seemed to really kind of start again to create, as it just takes a couple weeks usually for them to care about each other as well and how each other's feeling. But for the most part, I didn't have any issues as long as they didn't have to close their eyes. A couple of students have a hard time with that, again, going back to trauma, and don't want to have their eyes closed. And so I encourage them to put their head down, or they can lay their head down on their desk if they want to. But as much as you cannot look around helps your neural pathways to calm. And that's kind of what we talk about. And that seemed to really make a difference as well. And since then, and I've had some students that really struggle with classroom procedures and what's expected of being in a classroom over the last 2 years, and I really haven't had any students completely, I'm not going to do this, or I don't want to, after about a week. So
Thank you. I was thinking about it. I was like, this just sounds like, it just keeps sounding great. I was like, there got to be something that's like, maybe there's a couple students. But when you were speaking about it, I was like, this definitely makes sense. And something that came up probably for you, Scott, is have you thought about putting this in the middle schools or high schools even?
Not until now, but I will. Yeah. I'm a huge lover of music, and I use it even just for my own calming, so I could see that. I think for us, I would want to make sure that we're getting a lot of student input about what music would they want to hear, so that we're getting them invested in it as well. We find that when we got them invested in what we're doing, I think about our homecoming last week, we had a lot more investment in student voice on how we were going to do things for homecoming, and it was really successful. So if we were going to do a mindful music, I'd want to get some student voice on that.
That's amazing to hear. If you actually do implement it, I would love to hear it
Great.
to see how that is going.
We have a number of musicians on staff that I've been trying to push to get out into the commons and play as well.
You know, it could be their career breaking out.
A teacher band, anyway. Director, is there any more questions? Thank you for your questions as well. Yes. Any other questions, directors? Okay, McPherson Douglas, do you have any questions?
Not at this time, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Scott. I appreciate it very, very much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. And now we'll hear from Superintendent Cook on the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Chair LeGrand. For my superintendent's report tonight, I have 3 items I'd like to discuss. The first one is I just wanted to notice the board that we have actually pushed out information inviting different classifications of staff to participate and apply to be on advisory committees for the district. We have 4 different committees that will be establishing. We'll have an administrator committee, a classified staff committee, confidential staff committee, and a certified staff committee. We're accepting applications right now for those, and we'll be having, we anticipate right now, it looks like about 4 meetings for the year for each one of those groups to get feedback and establish kind of this loop of opportunity to discuss the direction of the district and getting input and feedback from those staff members. The second point of my report is I'd just like to follow up from an administrative perspective on our board and cabinet retreat. We've had quite a bit of discussion about that, and I just want to share that I think there's appreciation for some of the parameters, such as making sure that if we have questions from the board that go to individual staff members on our team, that those questions go back to all board members in an answered form, so that if one board member theoretically knows the answer to something, that all board members know the same answer. And so we're working diligently to that. And one of the things that we found that I think will be an important addition, it was a discussion that we had on our team, is that noting at the top of any emails that would go before the board who was being blind CC'd on those answers, so that it was an awareness of potential hazards of replying to emails that are coming to an entire group, for example. And so just seeing that as a positive and seeing an opportunity to continue to invest in that, so that we are doing a much better job of communicating amongst the cabinet and the board. And then my last part of my superintendent's report is just an update on district administrative staffing. I'm excited to report that we now have a new director of HR that started in our department, Beatrice De La Rosa. She goes by Triz. She started this week. That is replacing Paul Dean, who has chosen to move over to the Chief Operating Officer. We're excited to have Triz now starting in that position. We have offered, and an individual has accepted the position for Executive Director of Elementary Schools, which is replacing the position that was vacated by Dr. Burke in her move to become Deputy Superintendent. That individual's name is Karen Rush. She will be starting in early November, I believe. November 4th, thank you. And we're excited for her addition. That announcement went out today publicly, and that will be is released to the media. And then our last administrative position, we are currently accepting applications for an Assistant Director of Finance focused on the accounting side of our work. And that is to replace Leah Bebeau, as you know, who has gone to work for the High Desert ESD. And we are now accepting applications for that position, and we'll be closing in 2 weeks. And we're excited, and we've had applicants already show tremendous interest in that position. And so glad at this time to invite you all, if you have questions or concerns about any item that I've just mentioned or any other items tonight that you'd have questions on, glad to answer any of those questions.
Directors? All right, thank you. And at this time, thank you, Dr. Cook, appreciate that. We'll now open the floor to board comments, and we're going to start with McPherson Douglas, who's online.
No comments from me tonight, except just to echo, I think it was Cameron's thanks to everyone who took the time to apply to be appointed to the school board. We really appreciate your time and effort and willingness to serve in this capacity. Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Director Olson.
Thank you. This has been a really nice meeting. Thank you, student council members and representatives. And thank you, staff, for just jumping in. We don't get a chance all that often to just have those kinds of conversations. So I really appreciated that tonight.
Thank you. Director Fisher.
Yep. Thank you so much for being here, Student Voice Council, and thank you, Amy and Steve, for taking this on. And I'm looking forward to having Student Voice Council folks here every meeting, and additional folks from different groups, committees. And I love the engagement, so thank you, and your willingness to give your time. And then also, I want to give a shout out to Scott Olszewski and the South County team. It really means a lot to hear of the positive things that are happening, and especially I really am grateful for this, the focus on engagement and clarity for families, and this positive approach, and really kind of thinking big picture, and for some of our most vulnerable students here in this community, and it doesn't go unnoticed, and so thank you. And then I also wanted to mention how much I appreciated the film Black Girls in Suburbia, which I went to a few weeks back, put on by the Black Family and Student Union, and I'm really excited to have things like that happening in our community, and I saw a lot of familiar faces, but I also hope next time we have something like that, we get even more and pack that Tower Theater, because this is a great start to really engaging everybody as part of the school district, but also the greater community, because we know students of color, particularly girls, are more likely to feel less engaged and less belonging, and a whole host of other challenges that go with students of color, particularly Black and Native American and Latino students. So I'm really excited to see more of that, and particularly hear about the engagement coordinator or liaison for South County. So excellent. Thanks. I'm glad to be here.
And Director Chadwick, before you go, I want to piggyback on the Black Suburbia movie. If you want to give you backgrounds on it, what happened is that a filmmaker made a movie about being a young Black girl growing up in West Lynn, and her parents taking her out of the ghettos of Northeast Portland and moving her to that area, and the issues that she dealt with of being a young lady of color, being in those areas. She interviewed about, 12 students, I believe it was, and they talked throughout about some of the issues and concerns, and many of the young ladies who were in the attendance to that saw some of those similarities that's going on here in Central Oregon. Many of the things that they talked about was that many of the people want to be friends with them, but they don't want to ask them out for dates, or they don't get asked to the prom, or they don't get many different things that they're going through as young Black girls in Central Oregon. And they express many of those things too, or they express things such as, being able to talk to young men who maybe have the same ethnicity as they are, but not asking them out, but asking other counterparts or people with less melanin to go out. So it was a good dynamic to have those conversations and listening to those conversations from those students. So, and it's really, really tough to hear them go through that. And it was just really a great experience to be able to hear their conversations. And thank you. Director Chadwick.
Thank you. Yeah. And kind of to echo again, Karen, you have to sit behind over here because keep echoing what you're saying. But yeah, I would love to have seen more folks at these types of events, right? Showing up like you three are doing right now. I mean, that just showing up and bringing a friend, that speaks volumes. So I'm hoping that more folks will do that in the future with some of the events coming up. Let's see. There's just so much good stuff going on right now. Also, to echo Shirley, thank you, teachers, for being willing to come to the table and speak with us, having that conversation, and hopefully other teachers, other schools will get wind of that. And I think I'll stop right there.
Director Tatum.
No comment.
Thank you very much. And my final comments are this. One, I would like to thank, again, South County for doing a great job of hosting us. Thank you very much for allowing us to be here. And thank you for all the families here as well for all their commitment to being a part of this district. Next, I want to thank, if you ever get a chance to go to North Star and go to Dance Party Fridays, it is the best experience. If you want to go get your boogie on a Friday at 7:45 in the morning, make sure you go. It is awesome to be able to see that. I want to thank all the senior leaders who were at our retreat with the board. Thank you for much for your commitment being there. And there's an old adage we talk about in terms of Ubuntu. And if you don't know what Ubuntu means, it's not about me, it's about we. And I really like that. That was the philosophy that we came out of that retreat with. And then finally, Ben. Ben was in my after-school program and he was 11 years old. And he was one of my first students in the after-school program that I started in Central Oregon. And now seeing him at Student Voice Council, Ben, I applaud you, and the rest of you as well. But Ben, it's really good to see you in this role, and I'm great to see that you're driving too. So again, thank you all. Our next work session is scheduled for October 22nd. Our next regular business meeting is scheduled for November 12th. With that being said, this meeting is adjourned.